All right, we have an interesting one for you guys today. So the other day, I was talking about genetic potential, and I brought up a person named Nyall Darwin, also goes by One Punch Nas on social media. Now, at the time, I was taking a look at it, and I was taking a look at his physique, and people were talking about him, and I was like, I don't think he's gonna like crack into the top at the Olympia this year. And then I saw some pictures of him next to people who have been in the top 5, and against some people, he looked like he was not going to be comparable. And against others, he did. And I was like, man, I just need to do a full-on predictions list. This is the best classic lineup that we have ever seen. Because if you take a look at the top 8, the people that are going to be in the top 8 this year, and you compared any one of them against the first version of CBum, that one classic physique, I think CBum might lose to every single person in the top 8 in his first year of winning the classic physique. That is how much the category has actually progressed over time. It has gotten so much better that what used to be a first place physique would not be a first place physique now. And so it makes it so much more interesting now that CBum's gone. You can't aura farm on us anymore. Now we get to see who is the next person to take that spot and maybe be a champion for a decade. I don't know, but we may have a new person in that spot. We're not going to talk about him yet. We're going to talk about some other people first. But there's good competition. Great competition. I would say number 1 is clear ahead of the rest. 2 through 8, mind-blowingly good physiques. Just it's a toss-up. So I'm going to say who I think is going to get into the top 5, who I think might be close but isn't quite there yet. And we're going to start with Nas Nyall Darwin. I hope this guy makes it into the top 5. I really do. I shouldn't say simply, he seems like a great guy. He does some science-based lifting techniques. Like that. Seen him caught doing some Keenan flaps here and there. So I would love to see him in the top 5. Do I think he's going to be in the top 5? Tough to say. He's got some stiff competition this year. He does have an incredible structure, incredible flow to his physique. He's a little bit narrow up top, and people will be like, wait, what are you talking about? His waist is so much smaller than his. Yes, his waist is so narrow, but that's the thing. His clavicles aren't super wide. He's just so narrow in the waist that it makes his clavicles appear a little bit larger until he stands next to somebody else who does have very wide clavicles. And there are some people who are going to be on this stage who do have that wider structure. So, and they also have pretty narrow waists to go along with it. Not quite as narrow as his, but overall it might be an overwhelming presence next to him. Could he take top 5? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to happen this year? Not quite ready to say that yet, but if he does, I will be extremely happy for him. Next person, Michael Dabul. Now, Michael is... I feel bad for the guy, really, I do, because he shows up good every single time. Every single time, he looks great, conditioning is on point. He just isn't quite as good as some of the other competitors structurally, and because of that, he never takes home like a 1 or 2 at the Olympia. I think his best placing was fourth or third. But he is always kind of floating around that top, but never quite cracks into the number 1 position, or even have people really asking if he's going to, right? That's the thing. It's like, I almost feel bad because some people who are even worse, like who lose to him, get talked about a lot more than he does. For some reason, he just goes under the radar, brings great conditioning every time. I don't know if he'll be able to take top 5 with how good the competition is this year, but he will certainly be in the running for top 8. Next, we have Ramon. Ramon Dino, the Kevin Levrone of classic physique, the uncrowned king according to every Brazilian that has ever looked into bodybuilding.
The Brazilians are crazy.
But could Ramon Dino take first place now that CBum is gone? I don't think so. You need to leave. I don't think he's at that level relative to the person who I think is going to be number 1. But do I think that he is going to be one of the top 5? If he shows up in solid condition, I think he 100% will still be in the top 5. I think he probably could even get a top 3 placing if he shows up on point like he usually does. I'm not going to say he's been perfect every single time he showed up, but if he shows up with good standards for himself, I think he can still crack top 3. Next person, we have Matthew Grego. Now, Matthew Grego has been a fun one because I feel like people have doubted him a lot, and he's just slowly silenced more and more people, and he just gets better every year. He has grit. Like, there are some people that they just have grit. I talked to him once, and I was asking him about like his overall plans, and he 100% believes that, or at least he did at the time, that he would be the classic physique champion of the world. And I'm like, I love that. I love a person that has that mentality that's just like, they're just unapologetically going for it on the top level. Do I think that he will be a top 3 contender this year? No. Could he crack top 5? Maybe, but I don't know, especially with the level of the competition. I can't say for sure that he will be in the top 5. I definitely think he'll be in the top 10, but top 5 could be a bit of a stretch with some of the other competition right now. Next person, we have Logan Franklin. And Logan is one who's kind of got a cult following. A lot of people love him. A lot of people want to see him at that top level. They're like, oh, he looks more classic than other people. The problem is this: when they say that, typically they're referring more to like true golden era aesthetics. They're like, he looks more like a golden era bodybuilder. The problem is, as much as people want it to be, classic physique is not really about looking golden era. I know that sounds crazy because it's like, well, classic physique was made as a throwback to the Arnold era. It's like, well, yes, but then it evolved, right? It evolved over time to be less about what the golden era prioritized or what looked good in the golden era, and more about how can these people be the most X-frame oriented bodybuilders basically all the way around. When they look at the back double bi, what do they want? They want sweeping lats, sweeping quads. What do they want when they're looking at the side pose? They want sweeping from the top down, sweeping out at the bottom, right? It's all about the X-frame in every single possible pose. But obviously golden era bodybuilders tended to have a little bit smaller legs. And that is kind of the boat that Logan Franklin falls into. His legs are not quite up to par with some of the other bodybuilders in this list. And because of that, I think it will hold him back. His conditioning, phenomenal. If he brings what he brought at the last competition, great. But I don't know if he will be quite there structurally to compete with some of these top guys. Next person, we have Urs. Urs is an interesting one because Urs, every single year I look at him in his Instagram updates, I look at him in his I'm like, you look good. I'm like, but I don't know if you're going to be like a top 3 guy this year. And then he comes top 3. Am I missing something? And then I look at him again and I'm like, I don't think, and then he comes in top 3. I'm like, what is happening? Like, why is he? It's because Urs looks worse on social media than he does on stage. There's a lot of people who look better on social media than they do on stage. So I think Urs is one of those guys that is truly hard to say where he's going to be because of the fact that when you look at people online, you can typically get a pretty good idea as to where their physique is at relative to others. But for him, until he's standing next to the other person, he's really, really hard to judge. Because when he stands next to people, he exposes some of the things that other people aren't quite as good in because he's very good in those aspects, but those aspects might not be quite as eye-catching on social media when he's standing by himself. So Urs is one of those ones where you can never count him out of a top 3 placing. It's like because I know people do it all the time, and then he gets top 3, right? They're like,
oh, he doesn't look like it. He doesn't look that classic.
When they see him in his individual routine, or then he goes and like stands next to the top guys, and you're like, oh, that's why he's in the top, right? He does look amazing when he stands next to the other guys. So I'm gonna say Urs still has a possibility of getting top 3. Will he? You never know. But I would say he's probably the one who surprises you the most often, the most consistently. So definitely don't count him out of a top 3 placing. Next, we have Jose Manuel, Josema Beast. Josema? I don't care how you pronounce it.
You racist son of a...
But this guy has the best conditioning in classic physique, or at least has consistently had the best conditioning in classic physique. From every show that he shows up, the glutes, the hamstrings.
I have never spent more time looking at a man's glutes in my life than I do at his.
I'm just gonna be straight up. Like, give me some of that. Those, like, his conditioning is just gnarly, and the size that he brings along with that conditioning, next level. The only reason that Josema, whatever you call him, the only reason that he is not right now #1 in the world is, and I know this kind of sounds like a cop-out because people are like, oh, well, genetics. Like, his genetic structure is not quite as nice as some of these other guys. He doesn't have quite as much flow to his physique. It's a little bit more awkward looking, not quite as symmetrical. That is the main reason that he's struggling right now. Maybe he'll move to open at some point and blow the world away in open. But right now, his conditioning, amazing. Muscularity, amazing. It is simply the flow of his physique. And because of that, it will all come down to what the judges want to see on the day, right? So the judges might decide that they're really favoring conditioning this year. And you're like, oh man, he jumped from being 7th place to 3rd place. And you're like, dang, okay. Or he could go from 3rd to 7th because they're like, you know what? He's just not quite as X-framey, classic-y, doesn't have as much of the sweeping quad as we want out of our classic competitors, which is something they did to Wesley, right? With Wesley, a lot of people were like, oh, he's going to be top, including me. I was like, man, like he's going to be one of the best. And then they made a very, very clear statement when he came out last time that they just weren't a fan of his shape, right? He had great conditioning. He had overall a lot of muscle mass. He was big on stage, like he looked big even next to other people, but they made it very clear. They were like, okay, well, he doesn't quite fit the classic standards that we're looking for, so he got like 7th or 8th, right? And I think the same sort of thing could happen to Jose. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm saying it could happen if they decide, you know what, we just really don't like his shape. We'll see what they do. He could be a guy, he's kind of that one that could go all over the place, but don't count him out of the top. But also don't assume he needs to be in the top just because of the fact that he's very muscular and very shredded. Next person we have is the person who will come first if he brings solid conditioning, and that's Mike Summerfield. Mike Summerfield, every single update I see of him on Instagram, I'm a little bit more mind blown. It's like, it doesn't make sense. Like, how can somebody be that wide up top, that narrow down here, and then those sweeping of quads? Like, it's like, what am I looking at right now? Like, there is only one other person on the planet right now that I think compares to him genetically from an overall frame standpoint, and that would be Keon, right? But Keon doesn't compete in classics, so it's like, I just don't think anybody quite has what Summerfield has right now. I don't think people realize how close Summerfield was to CBum last year. Like, I saw a lot of people being like, oh, CBum cleared him, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it was closer than you think. Right? Yes, CBum has super, super high amounts of aura. So the minute you see him, like, your eyes are going to be drawn to him. But if CBum didn't have his name, I think you would have seen a lot more people giving Mike a chance. Obviously, CBum's taller too, so like it's going to create a little bit more of a visual impact. But Mike was not far off, right? Mike was close. Mike was on his heels. Mike actually pushed him. Yes, I still think CBum won that overall. But Mike was even better than I think people realized. With CBum out of the way, with no distractor, I think people are really going to realize that when they see him on stage this year. They're going to step out, they're going to hit a few poses, and it's going to be like, okay, Mike's number 1. Who's number 2, right? That's how I think it is going to go. Obviously, this is assuming he brings good conditioning. His conditioning at his last show was not as good as his conditioning at the last Olympia. So could we be seeing a trajectory of poorer conditioning over time? We don't know, right? So it's like, if he'd had better conditioning at his last show than he did at the Olympia, then be like, okay, no, we can't even question it. Like, he's obviously got it down pat, dialed in. But I would say that his condition at last show made me go, making things a little bit interesting for the Olympia. Maybe he didn't push his conditioning quite to the same level because he was like, well, I could probably win this show even without being my most peeled, right? So really what it's going to come down to is, if Mike shows up shredded, he is untouchable. If Mike shows up pretty darn good, then we might have a conversation on our hands. But if he shows up sloppy, that is the only way I see him legitimately falling out of a top 1 or 2 placing. And even then, like, it would have to be pretty sloppy, in my opinion, in order for him not to take the win. But there's somebody that I meant to talk about earlier that I missed. And that was Terrence Ruffin. Terrence has obviously taken a long off season. He's come back. He's put on a lot of quality mass from the last time he competed on stage. When I say last time, I mean like a couple years back. And so he looks amazing. I would say arguably he has the best shape in classic. And I know you're like, well, you just talked about Mike having the best. No. I think Mike has the best overall frame. I think Terrence has better shape. They're different, right? So frame has to do with like bone structure, right? So like where the muscle can go on, like the shoulders are like this wide, and it's like, and the waist is this narrow. but the overall flow to the structure, I would not say is quite on the same level as Terrence's, but it is also overwhelming in size. Like this is why this becomes so interesting, because now it's okay, are we worried more about flow, are we worried more about size, conditioning? But it's a complex interplay of all of these things that we have to look at.
Isn't it just like figuring out the little intricate mechanics of different systems?
And so Terrence, I do not think right now has enough size to challenge Mike on his best day yet. But I do think that Terrence has an incredible physique. I do think that he will probably place in the top 5, assuming he brings it. It's just going to be a matter of, I think Mike is just a little bit too big right now, to the level where sometimes I question, is Mike actually making weight cap, right? Like I take a look at him and I'm like, are we inflating his height? Because obviously if you have more inches to your height, then you're allowed more pounds to your weight. Is he really the height that he's listed? Or are we just saying, oh, well, let's give him an extra inch so he can have an extra like 8 or 9 pounds to his, it's too much. It's too big. I don't understand how it happens, but he makes it work. Somehow it works. So I don't think that he will be, but Terrence, I do think will bring us an amazing show and will keep things interesting because of his flow, his posing, his overall size. His size is good, but it's not on the same level as Mike, but nobody's size is on the same level as Mike. It's just going to be really, really interesting to see all of these physiques next to each other, especially those two, because I would say those two are the most classic physiques that we have right now in terms of overall structure, flow, etc. Oh yeah, Darkhorse, the person I forgot to talk about. He's probably arguably in that conversation when it comes to structure, flow, etc. for being one of the best in the world. I think the only thing, I don't know if it's size or conditioning right now that's holding him back, but there is something right now, and I think it'll become more apparent when you see him on the bodybuilding stage next to other bodybuilders, because on his own, he looks absolutely incredible. One of my favorite physiques. It is Livigno Pro. Livigno Pro. He is just, like, when I look at a physique and I'm like, oh, like that, ooh, I would
Love to work with you.
What do you mean by that?
just like you can see it's all there. It's all there. It's just a matter of time sharpening up a little bit. Additional details, a little bit more mass here, but all overall, like still very, very good proportions. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this year. I don't know if he was on the Olympia stage last year or not, but he was at a show shortly after the Olympia where he competed against Nas and Ramon, and he took second. So he actually beat Nas at the last show they were on together. However, Nas has made a lot of improvements since then. So that's not me saying that he's going to come in and beat Nas on this go around. That's simply me saying that's the level we're working with right here. A person who was within the last year capable of beating a heavyweight hitter. So I think he could sneak his way into the top conversation. Not necessarily the top 5. I don't know if he's quite on those guys' level yet, but I do think he could find his way into the top 10, maybe even like the top 8, but only time will tell. And guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm sure some of you vehemently disagree with me, probably the Brazilians who think that Ramon should have been #1 for the last 10 years, last 15 years, even though the category hasn't even been around that long. They probably think he should have won in 2012. But guys, it is going to be an amazing classic physique. I am really, really excited for it. Please tell me what your rankings are, what you think it's going to be. Come back 2 months from now and absolutely flame me for getting this all wrong, because we all know predictions go horribly wrong, because you never know. Like, people just like, there's so much variability with what can happen between now and 2 months from now, Olympia. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I think we are going to see the best classic physique stage that we have ever seen overall. Of course, you can argue, well, CBum's not there. Yes, but in terms of actual other competitors, I think it will be the deepest lineup that we have ever seen on the stage, and I'm super excited for it. Hope you guys are too. As always, love you guys. Appreciate you guys. TNF out.